Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons, or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and today we are giving you a realty check about one of these shows that we love so much. But of course, I say we, because I won't be selling you anything alone. No. Joining me, as always, your co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. Welcome to the show, Rich. Welcome back. How are you today? Whatever.
You sounded almost like a robot there for a little while. I won't be selling you alone.
This is the Best Darn Diddly Sales Show.
Every time I say the title to this episode, I feel like it's wrong, and I want to change it to reality.
It's hard.
But I know that's the bite, so to speak. I mean bit, so to speak. So no biggie there. Clearly, this is going to be a disastrous episode. Oh, wait, that's a poor choice of words. You and I are going to have a difficult time getting through this episode a little bit. So let's just get it over with. Throw it back to you. The man, the myth, the Farticus. It is Miles.
There is no god called Farticus, sir. No Roman god, at least. Apparently, there might be a Greek one. I don't know. We are talking about Realty Bites today, which originally aired on December 7th, 1997. This is just the second to last episode from the 1997 year. And we'll be moving into 1998, which is just kind of crazy how close we're getting to the 2000s. We're almost a decade into this show at this point, Richie.
Dang, and it's only taken us a decade of podcasting.
It's been like 3 years. We're moving along pretty solid here. The chalkboard gag on this one, Richie already referenced. It is there is no Roman god called Farticus, and the couch gag. I actually really like this one. It's an actual human hand that comes in and like grabs the picture of the Simpsons sitting on the couch and then spins it. And when it comes to a stop, did you ever have spin art when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's what it was. It was spin art. If you ever had the pleasure of doing that, you just have the paint like pushing towards the edges of the paper. It was actually really cool. I thought it was a fun couch gag.
Did you have director's commentary on this one?
I did not have director's commentary on this one.
I was wondering if it was like graining or Reese's hand. I was trying to figure out whose hand that was.
Yeah, I don't know if it was actually anybody's specific or, I mean, I guess it probably had to be, right? I don't know.
Where did they get the hand from? Where did they get the hand?
I know, clearly it fell out of the frame whenever Kurt Van Houten's hand got chopped off. So they just used that.
There you go. Okay, it all makes sense.
If it falls into the real world, it just becomes human and has a fifth finger.
It went the spot behind the couch in the Simpsons, or the dresser, whatever that thing was, the cupboard in the Simpsons household, and turned 3D.
Totally canon. You already kind of talked about it, like wanting to say Reality Bites, and that's exactly what this is a parody of. There's a movie in the 90s called Reality Bites. And this is a parody on that. Of course, we're going to see Marge become a realtor, so it's a perfect
Realtor?
Yeah, sure. And that movie came out in 1994, for what it's worth.
Oh, this is a pretty quick turnaround on the jokes, then.
I guess so, a few years. As long as you could take to podcast about approximately 8.5 seasons of The Simpsons. So we get started on another lazy weekend with Homer sitting on the couch, and actually he's eating a bowl of popcorn, and he like declares how much he just loves these lazy Saturdays.
It's Wednesday, Homer.
Work! So we see Homer like run off screen, and we can hear the car burning rubber. We cut like a few days away, we would assume, because we're back to Homer on the couch. This time he's saying that he's really in love with these real Saturdays that are actually relaxing, unlike those fake Saturdays that almost got me fired.
I actually enjoyed that bit.
And I think Homer's like using his tongue as a straw, essentially, to like suck popcorn from the bowl.
Yeah. I think I've tried that once or twice before I saw this or after I saw this, but yeah, I don't do that anymore.
I will, on occasion, like, if I have my hands full or something at, like, a movie theater, if I'm eating, like, popcorn myself, I'll nibble off the top of the bowl.
It's like the popcorn just sticks to your tongue, so if you're the only one eating out of that tub, you can just stick your tongue in the bowl and just suck up the popcorn.
And then there was that one time that we tried that together and had a little Lady and the Tramp moment, but, we got over it.
We were both the lady and the tramp.
Unfortunately, Homer's good time of just sitting around and doing nothing is starting to, you can tell, get on Marge's nerves. She's just getting a little bit, I guess, like, caved in or stir crazy. That's a good word for it.
Is this all we're going to do today?
Absolutely.
To be fair, Homer looks very relaxed. Like, I can't be mad at him for wanting to stay put.
Well, that's always, like, the frustrating thing is, like, when somebody is, like, just in the mood to be lazy and somebody isn't, it can be a very awkward dynamic for, the tension in the room, I guess. I don't know.
I often argue with myself with both of these sides.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, like, sometimes it's like you gotta, like, really motivate yourself to get up and off the couch to get your day started. But once your day gets started, usually it's better than just sitting around. I'm usually find myself to be happier. But occasionally, you just gotta sit on the couch and watch TV. I mean, this is America.
Well, Miles, I gotta have you realize here, life is short.
It is?
We have to make the most of the time we have.
We do?
Otherwise, we could wake up one day and realize we've wasted our whole podcasting lives.
Oh, that.
But, Friends of the Library is holding a historic manuscript viewing.
I love that Homer, like, can't even, like, put up with this idea. He's like, Friends of the Library. And actually, I feel like there's a little bit of, I don't know if it's necessarily a callback, but it's a very similar joke between Lionel Hutz and Marge later that I really enjoy.
Yes. Ooh. There's also an azalea festival at the public garden.
Homer claims he went yesterday, which I think is really funny. But then when like Marge is like obviously suspicious, and Homer's like, "Well, Lenny really wanted to go." So
Lenny
Marge
gets a couple spots in this episode.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But Marge is upset. She's not happy being in the house. She's not satisfied at all with Homer's suggestion to just open a window. So finally, Homer breaks down and agrees, all right, go and change into something nice. We're stepping out.
Ooh.
And then in the very next scene, we see they arrive at the police seized auction for, like, seized property from criminals, essentially. And you can see Marge has put on, like, a beautiful, like, Sunday dress, and she's, like, ready to go. Yeah, she's even wearing a hat. That's how fancy Marge is at this point. And you can tell she's super annoyed. A police auction?
Can you believe it? It's already been a year.
And this seems like an event that Homer actually gets excited about. Like, you'd think he might have actually had it marked on his calendar.
I mean, but he wasn't dressed up. He had his regular work clothes on.
Yeah, he just looked like Homer does all the time. Homer's really excited because there's lots of cool looking stuff, and they can finally get that drug boat they've always wanted.
I don't want a drug boat.
Well, I bet there's drug dresses and a drug vacuum cleaner, too.
Ooh.
And that's when we see Police Chief Wiggum step up to the podium, and he starts the auction. All right, listen up. These prestigious wrought iron security gates are bulletproof, bomb-proof, and battering ram resistant.
Then what happened to Johnny D?
I forgot to lock him. So they start the bid, and you can see up in the window of the jail, it's Jailbird or Snake chatting away with another inmate by the name of Johnny D. And they're really bummed out because Johnny D's upset about losing his gate, obviously. And Snake is just kind of like casually like, yeah, sucks to be you, dude, more or less.
And then next for sale, Little Bandit.
And Snake is heartbroken. He clearly loves his car very, very much.
Oh no, my car.
I love the dude later. We'll get there, I promise. Such a good Snake line.
And was it Johnny D that has the episode production number on his uniform?
You are absolutely correct, sir. Johnny D does, in fact, have the production code 5F06, or that's his inmate number, and that's also the production code for this very episode.
I mean, maybe every single person that does a Simpsons podcast would point that out, but we're not going to brag about it right here on the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. That was free, ladies and gentlemen. Free.
I'm not even sure what we just gave away, but yes, it sure was.
Free!
So immediately we see Homer is driving like a maniac, and Snake's like muscle car, red. It's got like the thing on the front of the hood where it pokes out and looks super cool and probably makes the car go faster somehow. Yeah. I'm very much like Mo would have definitely got me with what we're about to see in the scene with him, where if he just starts calling out fake parts, I'd be like, yep, that's in there too, probably.
I like that Marge is arguing with him, like, you bought a car without consulting me, and he's like, I don't remember you consulting me when you got that hat, and she says she found the hat, and what are you complaining about? And then they take off in the car, and the hat blows off her head, so like she lost the hat, the thing that she found. And
she's also like literally freaking out too, like he's driving like an idiot, and she's like, Homer, be careful.
Like oh yeah, you gotta be careful when you do a trick like this.
And he actually drives the car on two wheels going around a corner. To the point that Marge literally demands that he stops the car and lets her out, and she will not get into the car again unless he starts driving like a sane person.
Okay, bye, love you.
And he drives off, leaving her on the side of the street. He's
gonna take you literally.
But at least it's a lovely day for a walk, if nothing else. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but silver linings, right? So she takes a walk down the street, and she happens to run into a man that we've seen before, but not in this context. We see that Lionel Hutz is now hammering a for sale sign into the front of a house, and he's apparently a realtor now.
You know, if you lived here, you'd be home by now.
Mr. Hutz, I didn't know you sold real estate.
You didn't? Well, we should talk more often, Marge. You see, the law business is a little slow, and since most of my clients wind up losing their houses, this was a natural move.
Marge sees again the silver lining, because all she thinks is that helping people move from homes, or helping them find homes, that must be very rewarding.
Yes, the money is good. But the beauty is, you get to stay in the house until it's sold. Come on, guys, let's go for a swim.
And Lionel Hutz has like 5 or 6 dogs, and he's clearly letting them dip in this house's swimming pool while it's on the market, which is, oh my gosh. Good stuff. We cut back to Homer, who is now showing off his hot rod over at Moe's, and this is the scene I was referring to a minute ago, where Moe would absolutely get me with this, but I love they're doing some car talk, and Moe's like, geez, Homer, this hot rod's souped up 6 ways from Sunday. Never had you figured for a gearhead, Homer.
Oh yeah, I'm a real expert.
What is that, a 6-barrel holly clue?
You betcha.
Pedal block intake?
Nothing but.
Maya half lifters?
Oh yeah.
I made that last one up.
I see.
And Homer never changes his tone the entire time. Like, he's completely just like, sure, whatever you say. Yeah. We get another example of Homer's wisdom here when Marge is back at the home looking over a law book studying essentially real estate law. But Homer points out that, I don't know, trying is the first step towards failure, Marge.
I almost said a comic line. I meant to say iconic line.
Very iconic and a comic line. Both. Both are true. We see that she continues to study, and she's actually getting kind of excited. She likes to learn, it would seem. Oh boy, I've got a lot to learn before the license test.
Don't worry, Mom. We'll help you study.
That's Lisa, and Bart is like, of course, we'll have to cut back on our own homework. Always looking out for himself.
I really enjoy the next bit with Lisa and Bart pretending they're a married couple.
Yeah, that was actually really fun, especially when Lisa kind of like shuts down Bart, being like, don't mind my husband, he's an idiot.
I just like, there's something about it. It made you think of how you were as a kid playing with your friends, or like I was being babysat and had to do this occasionally, but there was just something about the way Bart and Lisa did it that I found quite hilarious in such a quick scene.
Yeah, and the fact that they were like fully dressed, it was like a production. Yeah, I like it. Marge greets them. So you're married and you're looking for a house, Mr. and Mrs.
Superman.
Oh, don't listen to my husband. He's just an idiot. Now, I'm a veterinarian and I need to keep lots of sick animals in my house. Is that permitted?
Not in my damn house.
Well, in neighborhood zone R3, which allows dogs, cats, phone answering monkeys, and she checks, I'm never going to memorize all of this.
When I had to learn about the Magna Carta, I made up a song. In 1215 it Ronnie doo-dah, doo-dah, the nobles and the king agreed, oh, doo-dah day.
And this is a great line here. Bart is like looking at his sister in disgust, who is his fictional wife in this scenario. We should have lived together first. That's funny.
It's not in my damn house.
So they actually do come up with a song, though, to help Marge learn her lines.
Oh, on the closing day, the Esker agents paid taxes, lines, and interest too, thanks to Penny May.
They back your bank.
You're all nuts.
Homer is like not even invested in this situation even a little bit.
He wants to go drive his car.
That's true. And, you know, I'll go ahead and talk about that real quick. I think this episode is really interesting in a number of ways. And one of them is that it reminds me of an older Simpsons episode. And I don't know if that's just me or if you would agree with that. But to me, this has the feel of like a more like classic, like one of the earlier season episodes. And a lot of it, I think, is just the way that they have like the very clear A and B pot, yeah. Always go with the A pot. It's worth the extra money. No, the A and B plot here, and it's very, very balanced though, in the sense that, like, honestly, I don't really know which one I would consider to be A and which one I would consider to be B, other than the fact that the title implies to me that Marge would be the A plot here.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really think about it that way, but I totally see that, and I'm just getting used to the way the show's kind of been here of late that I forgot how a classic Simpsons episode feels.
Well, and this one is, like, just about the Simpsons, too. Like, there's really... I guess the Flanders has come into it a little bit at the end, but for the most part...
This is...
Well, yeah, but, I mean, he's an auxiliary character anyway. I don't think they... Well, we never get a storyline that's only about Lionel Hutz, as far as I can remember.
And you never see him sell a house, but he's got this somewhat successful business, I'm assuming.
Yeah, well, and then you've got Gil working for you, too, who we haven't even talked about yet, but, like, that to me is the, you know, hard part to believe about this episode, is you put those two together and somehow they're still in business.
Yep. I mean, you got Cookie Kwan. Just stay away from the West Side.
That's true. She's got her territory and you don't want to mess with it.
Don't mess with the West.
So this song apparently does work, though, because Marge actually passes her test. I love there's a couple of interactions here. They're taking the test, and Captain McAllister is one of the other people taking it, and whenever these, like, proxer, whoever's watching them, I can't remember what that's called. Is it proxer? I don't know.
That sounds good.
Yeah, something like that, but Cap turns around and is like, "Dar, I nailed that one about the houseboats, did you?"
I like how the guy that the proxer is like, you may now undermine each other's confidence after the test is over.
Yeah, that's what it was, yeah. When Marge arrives home, she arrives to a supportive family. Her kids have even prepared a sign. In fact, they prepared two. When she first walked in, it actually had "better luck next time" showing, but when she tells them she passed, Bart quickly flips it around so it reads "congratulations." I think, Richie, did you just get disconnected from me? This is a one-man show now, folks. That's not good.
Hey,
yeah, he's back.
All
right, cool. My one-man podcasting career just had a very short run. So, Richie's back, yeah.
Much like our sex lives, it was a very short run. But I was talking the entire time. I said, it's weird that Bart's actually somewhat supportive and actually helpful in this for a little while.
Yeah, it's a little bit out of character for Bart, I suppose.
But it's Marge. You don't mess with the boy's mother.
And also, though, he's still himself, like, in the sense that, like, even when he's, like, quote-unquote helping, he's doing the stuff like, being mean to Lisa and calling themselves the Supermans. And even, like, the sign flippage has an element of, Bart mischievousness to it, in my mind.
Yeah. Sure.
But
Marge passed.
But, yeah, Marge passes, and she's very grateful to her children. She thanks both Bart and Lisa.
What about me? You didn't thank me.
Bart points out to his father, you didn't do anything.
I like being thanked.
So Marge is now kicking off at the Red Blazer Realty office, where Lionel Hutz is showing her through the building and trying to welcome her home, essentially.
Welcome to the big league, Marge. There's over 50 years of experience right in this room, and 42 of those years are Gil's.
And we meet a man by the name of Gil, who will become a series regular on this show. Marge, it's a real pleasure. You got any leads? I really need some leads. Please, help me.
That's enough, Gil. Don't drag her down with you.
Marge gets introduced to the rest of the employees, including Cookie Kwan, we just talked about a moment ago. She's number 1 on the west side.
Hi, Marge. Stay off the west side.
We also see Nick Callahan, and he just points over to a man with a headset telephone on.
A headset telephone? I thought those only existed in the movies.
But just then, Nick actually gets up, and this has a very oh man, what's that movie?
Glengarry Glen Ross.
Well, that's actually who this character is based off of, but that's not actually what I was thinking of. But since you brought it up, we should go ahead and point out, too, that the character of Gil is actually specifically very inspired by Shelley Levine, which is played by Jack Lemmon in the movie Glengarry Glen Ross from 1992.
Bling! The more you know.
But
what were you saying about this
I was
guy?
actually thinking of the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, which I've said since I was a kid, even though I like that guy.
Wolf of Wall Street?
Wolf of Wall Street, but it's where they're the intense sales room and stuff. I don't know. That's what it reminded me of. And he goes and rings the sales bell because he apparently sold a house.
All right. Booyah! Guess who sold the Whitman's place?
I've been working on the Whitman place for 21 years.
Jeez.
And he doesn't even get a split of the commission.
Why? Why would the house still be sellable?
I mean, houses last a long time, but it is weird that it sat on the market for 21 years.
Yeah.
Oh,
Who keeps up with the house? Oh, wait, I forgot you live in it.
My dog is freaking out. I'm not stopping this, but I'm going to figure out Nash, what are you doing, buddy? You're crying like a... So I'm just going to tell this quick tangent story real quick, since this is happening on this podcast and I don't feel like editing it out. I give my dog bones sometimes, and one of them, he just gets real freaked out about the idea of having a bone because he just wants to hide it. So if you hear that noise right now, that is my dog attempting to find a place to hide his bone. And
Poor
he's
Nash, life's so complicated.
I know. It's awful, but it cracks me up so much.
He's trying to tell you that there's a ghost in the house or something and you're not listening to him, and it's very frustrating.
I'm probably getting super haunted right now. That's exactly what it is. But as long as that ghost keeps on keeping on, I'm good with it.
The ghost is moving the bone when Nash hides it.
So I apologize if you hear whimpering in the background, but that's what that
He's
is.
not torturing an animal. Although I can't say for sure because we don't have the video up right now.
Yeah, now we're gonna have to do a podcast or a video cast so that people can see that my dogs are both healthy and happy.
I don't even hear Nowie. I don't know what's going on over there, Miles.
She's probably sleeping under a blanket. By her own choice. I don't put her there. That's what she likes to do. All right,
she's
whatever.
a burrower for sure.
He's right outside my room, just crying away. So this podcast is going off the rails. Whatever. Let's back into it. So we see there's more scenes with Homer just driving around town, reckless as can be. Just really.
Are you talking about the West Side? Sorry.
No, you're good. Homer's actually got the kids in the car, and they're in the back seat, and they're just like sliding back and forth because there aren't actually seat belts, it would seem, in this vehicle.
Seat belts, they kill more people than they save.
But they're very excited. Oh, yeah, sorry. That's not true. You're thinking of airbags. It is kind of cool, though, because they actually drive by a billboard for Marge's new business at the Red Blazer Realty.
There it is.
Wow, your own billboard.
Check it out.
Gee, that picture makes your butt look big.
I thought so, too, but they said it sells.
Works for the Lumber King. And you can see across the street, there's actually another billboard. It's the Lumber King, and he's got electric butts that actually move on the sign.
Lumber. We need lumber.
Mesmerizing, hypnotic butt cheeks, apparently.
And hey, clearly it works, so.
Well, what's interesting to me about this episode is I don't admittedly have a real estate license, but I have bought a house. And I've never seen a door-to-door realtor. Never once.
Yeah, me either.
But that's
Nor
what
would
Marge
I want to talk to one.
That is what Marge is doing, though. She's actually going door-to-door, knocking on people's home and asking them if they're interested in selling their house and moving into a new one. One of the first people she stops to see is actually Mo, where we see he answers the door and she's like, "Excuse me, Mr. Sislak, have you been considering selling your home?"
What? No. Why? What? Why? What have you heard? Are you implying I'm in some sort of financial trouble?
No.
Well, I am. Give me that card.
So apparently it works because Mo needs to sell his house for money, which is another awful idea, but it is what it is. We also see that Marge is showing the Hibberts around in a new home and trying to show off some of the options that are available. And here we have a lovely gourmet kitchen with gas range, central can opener, and foam underflooring for enhanced standability.
Wow, isn't this kitchen horribly cramped?
And this is where we can kind of see Marge might have a problem as a realtor, and it's simply that she is just way too honest, because she immediately points out that it absolutely is, and when Dr. Hibbert's like, "Well, I guess we could settle," she's like, "Yeah, but you shouldn't have to settle. I've always loved the house you're in now."
Really? Well, maybe we should stay put. Thanks for your honesty, Marge.
My pleasure.
If you ever need a prescription, no questions asked.
Everyone needs a doctor like Dr. Hibbert. Though, admittedly, that definitely seems more like a Dr. Nick type of statement.
Yeah. But I don't think I would want those kind of prescriptions from Dr. Nick.
True, I would.
No questions asked.
Getting the good stuff from Dr. Hibbert for sure.
Seriously, I can't answer the questions.
So, Marge, again, it's her honesty so far that has caused her to miss out on a sale, and immediately we see that she's showing a home to Sideshow Mel, and apparently, I guess, his wife and or girlfriend and or partner, I'm not real sure, but a woman named Barbara, and they're actually bowling, and they're blown away with the idea of having a house with a bowling alley in it.
Good shot, Barbara. I can't believe it, a house with a bowling alley.
Do you bowl often?
Actually, this is our first time, and I didn't really care for it.
And again, Marge kind of points out, well, maybe you should ask yourself, is this actually the right house for you?
I suppose not. I guess we were just captivated by this delightful plaque.
And there's just a simple sign on the door that says, "Bless this mess," which apparently Mel has the type of money in the sideshow business that he could, on a whim, buy an entire house with a bowling alley just because of the plaque.
I just like the fact that they make a joke that, that's what always sells the houses every time you see that little sign, because every time you go to some kind of open house or house selling bit, they have a similar sign posted somewhere. And that's really what drives the point home.
That is very true. It's one of the cookie cutter type of staple items you'd see in a showroom.
I was going to make another West Side joke, but I didn't.
West Side?
Said cookie, so.
It's fair. We see again with Homer in his car. He pulls up to a red light with Principal Skinner, and he actually revs his engine at him and is like, "Hey, Skinner, you want a drag race?"
My high school sweetheart was killed in a high school drag race accident.
Come on, it'll be fun.
That's what Debbie Sue said.
Yikes, that's a dark joke right there. And actually not the darkest one we'll get in this episode either.
Oh.
I didn't write it. Don't get mad at me. We can see, though, Homer actually stalls out the car, and he just so happens to be at the light on the corner right by the jail, where, along with the rest of the inmates, Jailbird is working out in the yard. And apparently the only thing keeping the inmates in the prison is the honor system and a sign that says, "Please, no escaping."
Oh, that's little Bandit, and she's in pain. Screw the honor system. My car needs me.
And I love Kearney's there lifting weights, and he's like, "Hey, you'll ruin it for the rest of us."
He just walks out the door.
But unfortunately, he's just a moment too late, because as soon as Snake gets out of the cage, it's just Homer drives right by going real fast, so he's apparently able to get the car running again.
Stop! That's my car!
And you can see he's like kind of sniffing the exhaust fumes from the car as he drives by.
Hey, that smells like regular. She needs premium, dude! Premium! Dude!
And I love that line so much. Just the way that he repeats himself by calling out into the distance. It's beautiful. And I really like Snake a lot. We talk about that fairly often. He's just a really fun character, and this is definitely a fun line by him.
It's a good bit. I like it's something you wouldn't necessarily think of as a B plot, but it works in this episode.
Yeah, 100%. Back with Marge and Lionel, though, it seems like Marge is about to actually be praised because, Marge, I had a lot of calls about you. Customers love your no-pressure approach.
Well, like we say, the right house for the right person.
Listen, it's time I let you in on a little secret, Marge. The right house is the house that's for sale. The right person is anyone.
But all I did was tell the truth.
Of course you did. But there's the truth. And he's like kind of doing like a happy, friendly voice. And he's like...
No, the first one's mm-mm.
That's right. Yeah, I'm sorry. There's the truth. And he's like shaking his head like, no, don't do that. And then there's the truth. Where he's not
the truth and the truth. I do that all the time and people have no idea what I'm talking about. And I love doing that.
But he actually gets out a catalog of, like, things to show, like, different houses on the market to talk with Marge about. Like, for instance, they pull out that really small one, and when Marge points out, it's awfully small.
I'd say it's awfully cozy.
Well, that one's dilapidated.
Rustic.
This house is on fire.
Motivated seller.
Well, that's a beauty.
Forget about that house. That's the murder house.
And the only good-looking house in the entire book actually apparently had somebody... Marge actually recollects right here. Oh yeah, I remember. Mrs. Astor was very lucky.
Well, no one expects you to sell that house, but you better sell something, because cubicles are for closers, Marge. Anybody that doesn't sell a house the first week gets fired. I probably should have mentioned that earlier.
Maybe something to, talk about up front.
After she's been already trying to sell for at least a day, probably a couple.
And Marge here is already struggling with this idea. She just doesn't know if she can bring herself to lie or even bend the truth just to sell a house. And her family is there to console her, starting with Lisa.
Even if you don't have that killer instinct, big deal.
Yeah, honey, even if you don't succeed in business world, you're still the world's greatest wife and mother.
So that's how you see me? As a spineless potato-cooking housewife who can't compete in the real world?
And all of the family is like,
Well, I too can compete, and I'm gonna sell a house. End of story.
Kids, your mother's under a lot of pressure. Why don't you let her clear the table in peace? Oh. And they all walk away. We cut immediately to Marge showing the Flanders around some available houses, and they're not getting off to a good start. The first house is like falling into pieces, it looks like. They even say it looks like it could fall down at any point, which is ironic considering what happens later. And
ironic considering what happened to the last house they lived in.
True. Oh, yeah.
That's the note that I put in this episode. Are the Flanders trying to move? Yeah, are the Flanders trying to move because of the terrible house the townspeople built them after Hurricane Nettie?
To Marge's credit, though, she's trying Gil's methods because when she shows this awful house, instead of saying it's dilapidated, it's a handyman's dream.
Well, nothing's perfect. I'd sure hate to make you come out here and not buy a house. Freaking Ned.
And now Maud is there too. Now slow down, Nettie. The home buyer's course said always look inside the house before buying. Which, to be fair, it was a good thing that they at least tried that, because as soon as they open the door, it detaches and falls to the ground. And
the whole wall does.
Yeah. We can see, actually, that Lenny is inside eating in his underwear from a can.
Please don't tell anyone how I live.
Honestly, I didn't even realize that was from this episode, but I just used that exact picture of Lenny in that situation. I basically was making fun of myself on Instagram because I totally just watched some reality TV that was awful, and I didn't want anybody to know about it, so the best way to do so is post it on Instagram.
What did you watch?
It was The Circle on Netflix, and it was absolute trash, but I watched the whole goddamn thing.
Uh-oh.
It's really a bad show. It's one of those, like, it was like a train wreck watching it, and I just kept, and you know how Netflix is. It's a pusher, man. It just keeps playing episodes. I have to make effort to stop it, and sometimes that just wasn't happening. It was one of those classic lazy Wednesdays.
I call bullshit, sir, because you have to tell it you're still watching after the third episode plays.
Well, I'm not saying I never clicked.
Okay.
Again, we see them at the very small, cramped house that they had showed the Hibbards earlier, and Marge actually convinces them not to buy it at this point. Because she doesn't want to, mess over her friends, but she's kind of having that, internal debate inside her head, because she also doesn't want to lose her job. And unfortunately for Marge, the murder house actually, or I guess maybe fortunately, but one way or the other, the murder house actually catches Maud and Ned's eye.
Oh my diddly-dee! Will you look at this place? And the price has been slashed repeatedly.
Slashed. It sure is built solid. The kids could scream bloody murder and nobody would hear.
Well, I'm just gonna spill my guts. I love it to death. I'm gonna give you a deposit this minute. Unless you can give me a reason not to.
Is there anything else we should know, Marge? And you can kind of see Marge going, you can see her inner thoughts for a minute. You can actually see her thinking about the grisly murder and about Lionel Hutz telling her about the house.
Truth.
What's that?
I was just doing the truth.
Oh, the truth, yeah. Yes, truth, or the truth. But Marge actually lies to him and tells him no, there's absolutely nothing else to say about this house.
That's good enough for me.
And he hands her the check, and Marge is, clearly you can see she's having a moral conflict, but she turns to leave, and immediately Ned starts screaming.
Purple drapes! All my life I've wanted purple drapes!
And you can see that what sounded like bloody murder scream was actually a scream of delight over these purple drapes that apparently Ned could buy a house that has them, but couldn't just buy them for the house that he's currently in.
To be fair, didn't we already get the episode where the kids thought Ned was killing Maud and he screamed like that?
Yeah, I think you're right.
So and they've already established that.
I do also want to say that I'm almost positive this is the exact same design of the house from the Treehouse of Horror episode that was The Simpsons moving into the murder house. The one that like sucked itself into another reality or whatever it did at the end of that episode to avoid having to live with the Simpsons. But like the design of the home seemed almost identical with the staircase and the big giant hardwood floor living room by the fireplace. Am I the only one here thinking that, or?
I'd have to see that again. I thought the outside of the house looked like a lighter shade of the Bordello house, the Maison Derriere.
Yeah, interesting. Maybe the murder house and the Bordello house had a baby and made this house.
I was going to think of a pun to combine all those words together, but I'm too lazy right now, so I'll just say yes.
Back at the Red Blazer Realty office.
It's hard.
Lionel Hutz is ringing the bell, announcing that Marge made a sell, though while ringing it, the bell actually, like the thing that makes it ring, broke off.
Ding, 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 ding.
Silence.
No, I thought he actually said ding, ding, ding after it breaks.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. But yeah, he's holding the thing like, it's not attached. It's funny. It's a good visual gag. They point out that it was actually the murder house that we sold, and everyone's very impressed. I mean, why? You must have had told a whopper to unload that death trap.
What'd you use, Marge? The old buff and bluff? The Hail Mary? The Sasquatch ahead, a shuffle? Huh? Huh?
No tricks. It was salesmanship. That's all.
Sure, Marge. Salesmanship.
But it was.
Sure, Marge. Was.
And that's the joke I was talking about that's very similar to that Homer joke at the beginning of the episode.
Okay, I gotcha.
I think so. I like both, and they fit well in this, so I'm good with it.
Sure, Miles. I don't have a follow-up word.
Well, whatever happens, as our newest closer, you're entitled to wear the coveted closing blazer.
Ooh.
And you get a third wall for your cubicle.
Uh-oh.
And they actually take Gil's wall, and like, he literally, like, shakes the pictures and stuff off of it onto the floor.
I earned that wall.
Don't push your luck, pal. You're hanging on by a thread here.
I bought this wall from home.
Gil's actually clutching onto one of his cubicle walls.
Oh, that's just so sad.
So, things are going well for Marge, it would seem, at this point. Back with Homer, though, it looks like Snake is out for revenge. He can actually seize Homer driving his car, and he's just waiting for him.
Oh, okay, Baldy boy. It's wire. Head comes off. Little Bandit rolls to a gentle stop. Everybody wins.
So basically, Snake has tied a thin wire across from two trees that it crosses the road, knowing that Homer's going to come driving by in the convertible. And his idea is to literally freaking decapitate Homer at this point. And again, everybody wins. Makes that really funny.
Much like the Wile E. Coyote would do to the Roadrunner.
That's exactly what I was going to point out. Is I personally believe. And I didn't read this is just my own speculation, but the box that Snake is using to set up this death trap actually says Acme on it, and that's, of course, a reference to the Looney Tunes. I think that they did that specifically to lighten, like, the heaviness of this situation, because, again, he's attempting murder in a very gruesome way. So, like, by adding the little, like, musical sound effect cues from Looney Tunes and the Acme reference, it makes it seem slightly less dark.
That's the way they had to sell it to the censors.
Right.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, though, right as Homer is speeding by and even standing up in the car for some reason, just so the, I guess, wind will hit his face, right at the exact wrong moment for Snake, Homer sees a gumball and bends over, passing completely safely under the wire.
Which means if Homer just would have been sitting in it normally, he still probably would have been short enough to go under the wire.
Correct. It was at the height where he would have needed to be standing to get cut.
Yeah, everything was almost lined up perfectly for Snake.
Unfortunately, not so perfectly for Kirk Van Houten, who's already frustrated as he drives behind Homer on the road. Not at Homer, but he ordered a sandwich and they were supposed to slice it.
And the visual gag here is you think the line is going to slice the sandwich in half, but instead it cuts off Kirk's whole arm.
Right. Ow! I like how, like, it's not even like a cry. I think I even oversold that. It's more of a, like, ow.
There's no blood, or it's just like a clean cut.
Clean cut, yeah, already cauterized. Everything's fine. And Mark, I mean, to be fair, we do get a little bit of closure with that at the end. We know for sure that he has his arm back, so presumably the hand either landed in his vehicle or he had to stop and go back and get it before going to the hospital.
It flew to the outside door of an emergency room, and so when we went to pick it up, it's like, while I'm here.
Back at the Simpsons home, we see the Flanders are actually next door moving out their stuff, which for the first time really gets Homer's attention with Marge's career because he's proud of her somewhat for selling a home, but more than anything, getting rid of the Flanders.
Well, neighborinos, I guess this is goodbye. I'd better make this quick, or I'm going to start blubbering like a baby.
Yeah, me too. Let me know if you need any help.
Now that you mention it, can we use...
It was just an expression. Marge is a little bit more heartfelt here, but again, you can tell she's definitely feeling guilty and worried about what she's doing to her friends. Goodbye, Ned. If the slightest thing goes wrong with that house, I want you to call me right away. Or you can beat me. In fact, why don't you just stay here tonight? Well, we'll go to a hotel.
Oh, you're sweet to offer. But we're just all so tired. We just want to get to our new house and rest in peace. So long, Simpsons.
I love how many murder references or death references both the Flanders use throughout this script. That's really funny.
Yeah.
And immediately Homer looks over at the empty Flanders home and shudders. Ooh, that old Flanders place gives me the creeps.
I always like that. Like the instantaneous gives me the creeps bit.
For sure. For whatever reason, I guess getting the creeps makes Homer want to go for another drive in his new car, but this time Snake has another plan. He's actually waiting for Homer on a bridge, and when he passes over, he jumps down into the car.
Ah!
Give me my car!
This is my car! Oh, and Snake called him fat too, so he goes, and I'm not fat! It's glandular.
Yeah, you're 100% right. It's not in the script there, but it's worth. But
yeah.
But either way, they get into a fight, and it's a pretty epic fight. They're beating each other, rolling out of the car. At one point, one of them flips the other over the hood, and then the other one flips over them. But Homer's shoe comes off in this instant and lands on the gas pedal, causing the car to just drive out of control while they fight on top of it.
And I like that, like, when Homer's holding Snake's head towards the ground, he's, whoa, this is pretty dark.
Yeah, kind of a little bit of commentary too. Again, this sequence just gets pretty crazy.
Yeah, and even Homer's going like, yeah, you're right. But then they start punching each other again. This is pre-Family Guy chicken fight too, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that would be accurate.
By a year or two.
We cut back again to Marge, though, who is still struggling with what she's done. She decides to go check on the Flanders. And to her horror, she walks in to see them all covered in blood lying on the living room floor.
Oh, dear God.
But almost immediately, Ned pops up and is like, oh, hey there, Marge. We were painting Rod's room red, and I guess we got a little tired and fell asleep.
And they were all painting in, like, all of their clothes. Like, he had his sweater vest on, and Maud had, like, her long sleeve stuff on, and like, no!
You painted old shitty clothes, man. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I do love this line here, too, though. We actually see Todd here is doing a little finger gesture, much like Danny from The Shining. Red room. Red room. Over there.
Yeah. Right to where he was pointing.
Marge finally breaks down and tells them she's glad they're okay, but she confesses to what's going on. And I think before we get resolution on that, we actually cut back over to the Homer and Snake fight, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and that's when Homer's being choked out by him, and Snake has that dark line where he's like, "Come on, let's hear the snap."
Oh yeah. He's literally trying to break his neck.
Yeah, and we kind of jumped the gun a little earlier, but I think that's when Homer flips him over and then is holding his head above the ground.
Yep.
The fight's just so exciting. We had to keep talking about it earlier.
Yeah, and it's kind of, this part is kind of cut a little bit interesting, where it's really popping back and forth to like show resolution for both storylines at once.
Yeah.
But the car actually goes driving by Chief Wiggum, who's sleeping on the job, of course, but it's enough to wake him up. And calls in, yeah, this is Wiggum reporting a 318, waking a police officer.
Enjoy that line.
When we cut back to Marge, you can see that they have, she's clearly just told the Flanders about the house, and instead of being upset, though, they're really excited. Apparently, before true crime podcasts were a thing, the Flanders were really into true crime.
Yeah, and Maud's like, oh, we're a part of Springfield history now.
Yeah. Apparently, the story is that there's a jealous jockey that he even piled up torsos in the fireplace that excited, like, wow, this was where those torsos were piled up right here in our living room. And then even the
Daddy,
kids,
I'm the jealous jockey.
They're like pretending to stab each other. I'm a torso.
Oh, and it's just like the family that you think would care the most about this is like, oh, wow, awesome.
So we have Marge, who is offering to give their check back, their deposit check back, but the Flanders don't seem to want it. They're very excited to be in their new home, but just in this moment, the car that is being driven by no one just so happens to be headed straight at this house's front door, and of course, it comes crashing through the living room and actually causes the second floor to collapse down on top of the first floor. Worse, Wiggum is right behind them, and even though he is fully in control of his vehicle, somehow he still manages to drive right through the house, and he gets just enough of a ramp off of the staircase that it causes him to go through the second floor of the house. So this thing is completely hosed.
And this is 1997 money, so I saw that Ned paid $10,000 for his deposit, and we'll see in the scene after this that like the estimated damage was like $200,000, which this house in like modern money would be so much more than that. So much more.
True.
Sorry, Mouse, continue.
No, you're good. You're good. You're absolutely right. The money situation on this is kind of all over the place. Even with the unemployment, we'll get here in a bit. But lucky for Homer and Wiggum, they even say it's like, wow, we landed on this bubble wrap, and they start popping it.
Hey, quit hogging.
But unfortunately, Jailbird did not have the same fortune, as he's sitting there mangled, and he says, oh, I'm very, very hurt. And that's when we cut to Marge at Lionel Hutz's office, and this time she's definitely being reprimanded. A smashed hot rod, a wrecked police cruiser, a destroyed house. I've had it with your renegade ways, Simpson. You're a loose cannon.
But
And what really surprised me is that you returned his check.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hutz, but I just can't lie to people.
You're one of a kind, Marge. And nobody deserves this more than you. And surprisingly, Lionel Hutz actually seems to offer her another blazer to, congratulate her work. Only this blazer has the name tag fired.
Huh.
I also really like how they set this one up at first, where it's almost like a bad a parody of like a police movie, where that's like the chief is coming down on her for being a loose cannon. Yeah,
I absolutely enjoy that too.
The kids try to reassure her that they're proud of her, and Lisa's even impressed that she wouldn't compromise her integrity.
Yeah, you did the right thing. Eventually.
Marge is, though, still just upset because she would have liked to at least bring home one paycheck.
Oh, you will, honey. You will.
That's funny because Homer is actually driving into the unemployment office as he says that, and we see Marge gets in line with a lot of familiar faces, actually. I know for sure one of the people in the line is the former writer of the Itchy and Scratchy show. The Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie show was one of the writers that got fired. There's also Simpsons writer George Meyer in line, and then there's a few others, but probably the most notable is former president and former Simpsons neighbor George Bush. HW, to be clear.
$300 for doing nothing? I feel like such a crook.
And that's where George Bush comes in. Don't worry, gets easier every week. And they kind of do a weird ending here a little bit. They do kind of like a very like sitcom-y freeze frame where the whole family smiles and stares into the camera. And that actually brings us to the end of our episode, Realty Bites.
What about the person that was standing behind all of them in line?
Who'd I miss?
Kirk Van Houten, whose arm was clearly reattached.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. But yeah, Kurt is wearing a cast showing that his hand has in fact been reattached, as you said. But that brings us to the end of the episode, Realty Bites. Richie, do that book of yours have anything else you'd like to add before we call it a day?
I did have some stuff I wanted to say that we kind of glossed over earlier. When Marge is going to take the licensing test for her real estate license, the sign outside said Realty Test $75 or best offer. So I thought that was, well, zero, but still, it was a funny joke. When they're doing the police auction at the beginning of the episode, there's a tiger in a cage, and it's a red tiger, an orange tiger, excuse me. Know your color, Richie. But I was wondering if that might be the tiger that our two magicians were missing 2 episodes ago when they were in the airport saying they had a lost tiger.
Now that's some continuity right there.
Continuity. But other than that, I did want to point out that IMDb states that George Bush is shown collecting unemployment when a former president actually gets to receive a pension immediately upon leaving office, so they would be ineligible for unemployment benefits.
Yep, inaccurate, but funny.
That just kind of worried me because that means there's a current president that's going to get more money after he's done being president.
Yeah, that's how it unfortunately works. It's pretty shitty, but it is what it is. I don't want to end on that dark note. So let's end on a darker one.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, no. We do need to address something else here that's kind of sad. This was, we already talked about, this was actually the first episode featuring the character Gil Gunderson. It was also the last episode to feature the character Lionel Hutz, not including non-speaking roles and flashbacks, which they both Lionel Hutz and Phil Hartman's other character, Troy McClure, continue to be featured in non-speaking roles in the background, even post-mortem. But this was the last original line spoken by Lionel Hutz, the character, and that is, of course, unfortunately due to the fact that while this episode came out in December of 1997, on May 28th, 1998, Phil Hartman is murdered by his at-the-time wife, and of course, his characters are retired from that point forward. We'll still see Troy McClure a few more times before that tragedy occurs, and we'll definitely talk more about Phil and our love for him and what he did for The Simpsons when we approach that episode at the beginning of season 10, actually, which is just right around the corner, and a really upsetting part of history to discuss, a really, truly dark day for comedy.
I remember how much that impacted me, like, just as a kid. Like, I knew who Phil Hartman was, and I like how his energy every time he spoke just really, like, made you happy on The Simpsons, and it just, I remember how sad I was when my dad told me that it happened.
Yeah, because you knew him from The Simpsons. I watched SNL at the time. He'd been in several...
Jingle All the Way.
I was going to say several movies that we both love as well, including Jingle All the Way. But yeah, just really sad. Really weird, though. I think this is an odd coincidence I just want to point out real quick. Gil actually ended up being a character that essentially was the spiritual successor to Lionel Hutz in so many ways. In fact, he became the Simpsons lawyer when they needed him to do so in future episodes. But this was not planned to be. Like, that wasn't like the way it was supposed to go down, which I think it's interesting that Lionel Hutz's last episode just happened to be Gil's first episode, even though, again, this actually happened 5 months before Phil Hartman passed away.
Yeah, it's weird how that kind of stuff works out, and it's just a bit of Simpsons lore now that Gil will become the do everything, man, that does nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's going to do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly Review Show. Thank you again, as always, so much for tuning in and joining us this week. And thank all of you that follow us online and support us on Patreon and buy t-shirts and tell friends about the show and all that cool stuff that we so love. Please make sure, if you don't already, that you follow our show. We are at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY. You can also follow me personally at Mr. Most Days Off.
And I'm at thewiz_kid23. Make sure you give us a follow.
And make sure you come back again next week. We are going to be covering, or I guess celebrating, Christmas. Just a few months too late, as we review our next Christmas episode, Miracle on Evergreen Terrace.
Now, I know Miles is like a veterinarian that has a lot of sick animals in the background in his podcast, and I just want you to know, not in our damn podcast. That's not permitted.
And until next time, be cromulent to each other.